Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a special mini-series for Stardew Valley here on Not Your Professional Walkthroughs channel with me, your host Max. So Stardew Valley 1.5 update has been finally released. It's been out for a few days and the content creators have been chasing after bringing you all the new content for the newly added features for the game. One feature, however, which is being overlooked, and this is something that I will be able to tackle even with my fairly limited hardware, is for the players to consider planning out their farm. Now, since 1.5 version has been released, we are gonna be able to work with a brand new farm layout, and this would be the beach farm. Now, the beach farm is absolutely not for a new player. If you are new to the game, I would probably suggest something like the Four Corners map or the original map. Those are still amazing and will give you plenty of room to experiment with whatever you want to achieve in your Stardew Valley playthrough. Please also do note that the video is mostly for informational purposes. I'm not here to criticize or not here to tell you what you need to do with your farm. There's a lot of us who enjoy the game, and all of us have a different set of goals for each farm, which we want to invest heavily our time into. So in order to make this actually consumable and potentially rewatchable, in case you truly want to experience the game and potentially come across lots of features, learn few things, we are gonna be utilizing a special tool which is called the Stardew Valley Planner. I'm gonna leave you a link for the Stardew Valley Planner in the description of the video so that you can get accustomed to it theoretically and you can start to use it. The tool is not mine. The tool is, however, free and is also crowdfunded. So if you do like what the content creators there are providing for you, the player base, you can of course support them on Patreon and so on and so on. So, on this episode, we will be taking a look at the beach farm. And here we should have an overall view of the farm, or at least the partial view of the farm. Now, in order for this video to make some sort of a sense, I am going to have to separate the map into 4 pieces. Since the farm is called the beach farm, I'm gonna sequence the video into 4 parts or into 4 sections so that the farm is separated into part B1, B2, B3, and B4. So this way I can leave also timestamps and I can provide you with potential scenarios. At the end of the video, I'm going to try to provide you with potential layouts or how they should look. I will also leave these links in the description of the video. These are just some ideas. I usually try to plan ahead the farm before I start my playthrough. I did this even with the 1.4 version Four Corners map, where I was able to cover at least around 90 episodes on my channel, which I will leave a link also in the top corner of the screen. But in order for us to get into planning the farm, we're gonna have to talk about certain strong points and weak points of the farm. The biggest weak point of the farm is that this is not a farm or farm layout or map for people who enjoy massive crop harvests. If you do intend to play this game, your priorities will be focused on fishing, foraging, and mining. And I would suggest the mining as one of the priorities, as if you still want to force yourself to get through some farming, especially on the sand part of the map where the sprinklers will not be able to be placed down, you're gonna require an upgrade for your watering can and your pickaxe and your axe in order to clear out the map of all the hardwood stumps and any of the massive rocks or any other debris which is currently on the farm. Also, I'm gonna tell you about some added features if you will try to start a brand new farm at the end of the video, so stick around for that. And in order for us to start, I'm gonna separate the video into the 4 parts now, and we can start to take a look at the upper left corner of the map, or the B1 section, and start to plan out certain ideas. So let's get to it. So in order for us to start planning the farm, I'm gonna start in the B1 corner, or the upper left corner. As you can see, this corner will contain the cave and originally your greenhouse. Now, the greenhouse is measuring 6 times 7 tiles. You can, thanks to the 1.5 update, actually, when you unlock it and by working with Robin, move the structure from this location to any other position on the farm. However, I do not advise for you to do this, especially considering the fact that you're not gonna achieve anything amazing on this plot of the land. As you can see, this has actually the grass underneath, and the grassland cannot be hoed or utilized for anything else. Therefore, if you keep the greenhouse here, it will be perfectly fine, but if you want to move it, it is up to you. However, I don't think I'm gonna be moving it. It's a truly nice feature that you can actually get the greenhouse. Probably my preference would be to allow the player to get a big greenhouse or a second greenhouse on the farm, just due to the fact that none of this land is actually able to be utilized for sprinklers. And sure, the greenhouse inside does not have the most massive amount of space for farming, but you're still able to squeeze in around 2.5 iridium quality sprinklers to utilize the most out of it. So it's still gonna be better than what you're gonna be able to do on the sandy part. Now that that's out of the way, the reason behind me separating the farm into the 4 pieces is that I like to work with grids. My preferred grid for farming is to utilize the 4 iridium quality sprinklers as a layout. Have this part separated by the use of the cobble path or any other path. It completely depends on you as the player, which is your preferred choice, of course. I'm not here to judge, I'm just here to educate, and I did a big mistake here, so I'm gonna move this because this is the proper use for the area of effect for the iridium quality sprinklers. Now, of course, iridium quality sprinklers are not gonna be that heavily featured on this map, but what you can still use is your watering can. Therefore, what I would suggest is, if you truly want to do farming, is to potentially use the quality sprinklers to try and draw out your potential layout. because the maximum potential of watering you will be able to do with watering can is actually 18 tiles, or these specifically 2 quality sprinklers. This is the area of effect that your watering can, when fully upgraded, will be able to water. So if you do insist on actually watering the crops and having them on the sand, I would suggest for the players to stick to this form of grid layout. Is this gonna be the most efficient use? Probably no. However, it will allow your tools to do the work, and in the later stages of the game, you should be able to water the crops if you truly need to, and the energy level should not be that much of an issue. However, if you were to fill in the entire section with this form of a grid, it will take you forever to acquire the resources and also plant in all the seeds, and I'm not even gonna address how much time it would take you to actually just go ahead and water the crops. Remember, when you are watering the crops, you are not pausing the time the same way as when you are actually harvesting the fully matured crops. Therefore, I do not advise players to utilize this section of the map for farming purposes. What I would suggest instead is to actually focus on having farm animals in the B1 section of your farm. The most efficient use of the sand is, or the biggest benefit of the sand is, that the grass starter will work here. With the 1.5 version of the game, ostriches have been introduced. However, ostriches can only be accessed on the Fern Island, and in order to access the Fern Island, I have created a video for which I will of course give you a link in the corner. But what you can do on this massive space is put down lots of barns. Here is the benefit of you actually working with the farm animals. The farm animals will be producing you on a daily basis milk or eggs. That is if we're talking chickens or cows. If you later on upgrade your barns or coops, you're going to be able to actually gain access to animals such as ducks, who now, thanks to the 1.5 update, have the capabilities to swim in the water. The reason behind them not running off your farm is mysterious to me, but anyhow, my suggestion for you of utilizing this massive piece of land is to go actually with the barns. And we are gonna place them a bit lower underneath the cobble path due to having accessibility to the cave later on. So I would suggest you to utilize a grid such as this, and this way you are gonna be able to fit in minimum 3 barns. And also, if you truly want, you can squeeze in like a silo, or you can put them somewhere in the middle of the massive place that will be available to the animals. So, since you have the room for this many barns, my suggestion is actually, when it comes to the fence system on your farm, to go and instead of using the actual fences such as these, because in 1.5 version the fence system has obtained a certain amount of change work, so it might be easier for it to decay, it might require much more maintenance work, it's just more hassle and more hands-on approach. And we are trying to create a self-sufficient farm which will be able to produce a generous income to you, the farmer. So instead of actually utilizing the fences such as these and putting a bunch of entrances and exits all across the grid, what I would instead suggest is the use of the lightning rods. You see, the lightning rods have the added benefit that it's much more difficult for them to be actually destroyed during the lightning storms. And therefore, since you are going to be spending a lot of time mining, you're going to be coming across the required resources and lots of bats, because you can also venture into the mines on the less lucky days, so it's more lucky you will be facing the swarms of bats or worms or any other critters which are trying to get you out of the dungeon system of the mountains. So utilizing the lightning rods will be actually a benefit to you. Remember, if you also want to get to the Fern Islands, you are gonna actually require 5 battery packs specifically in order to fix the ticketing system so that you can pay 1000 gold to Willy whenever you want to go to the Fern Islands. So if you truly want to, you can start off by building a fence and slowly replacing it with the use of the lightning rods. Of course, the biggest problem is that the planner is not showing all the debris which is gonna be actually manifesting on the farm itself. However, on the top part of the map, in either the B1 section or the B2 section, the upper part is gonna be mostly populated with your branches, your small rocks, your fibrous grass, your tall grass, and trees. So you will be able to actually burn through these obstacles even with your base quality tools, which will in fact allow you to start leveling up your mining skill, your foraging skill, and you're going to be able to save up some reserve of building materials so that eventually when you go to see Robin and you will acquire some money, you're going to be able to start putting down these structures so that the animals sure will be a bit more difficult to find in all the mess that you will be working towards clearing out, but you will not have that much room for farming in general. Sure, for spring season when you start the game you can go with the usual parsnip to kale to strawberry by the time you achieve or get to the egg hunt festival season, but because you are not going to be able to or not willing to spend too much time watering every crop, and it usually takes around the first week just to unlock the mines, so you are fairly limited to how deep you can get within them and how much you can upgrade your tools. It will heavily affect how much farming you can do. Therefore, this is why I actually suggest the use of the barns, because eventually as you keep clearing out the upper section of the farm, this will give you the room to create a massive roaming space for your animals. And the coolest thing is that the barns can accommodate eventually the ostriches, and also you will have plenty of rooms for your pigs to find truffles, for your sheep or any other animals which you decide to go for to actually utilize this space. The beauty of this massive scale and why I suggest you to make it this big is the fact that 3 of these should not be your full potential. If you truly want a massive farm, you can separate the farm to 2 pieces or 2 parts and therefore build additional barns which will allow you to keep even larger quantity of animals, and this should in return allow you to gain even larger access to more farm or animal products which will be generating you money. The biggest positive of you keeping animals is that you don't need to do that much with them. Sure, it's nice if you pet them, and if you hold a piece of hay above your head or have it selected in your menu, you will not be triggering actually the interaction conversation with each of the animals. You're just gonna be able to keep gaining their love, which will increase the quality of the milk or the size of the milk, and this will give you even more income. Also, it will be therefore beneficial for you to start utilizing the cheese machines in order to gain access to cheese. And for those of you who do not like the use of the shed, having this many barns will give you plenty of room within the inside of each of these barns to actually cram the place with bunch of cheese making machines. Therefore, you will instantaneously gain access to a stupid amount of money, and you will be able to become quite the rancher. So this would be my suggestion for this space. The other suggestion for this space, if we take a look at the Stardew Valley planner, is to utilize this section of the map for a tree orchard. So the thing about the fruit trees is that they have seen some rework, but you will still be able to plant them on your farm, and I would heavily suggest the use of the sand tiles. This will be extremely beneficial for you. First of all, the fruit tree is one of the required items which you will be required to drop off at the community center. Of course, now with the 1.5 version update, you are actually able to have remixed versions or different versions of community bundles which need to be fulfilled in order to increase the difficulty, which might also increase the time in which you are going to be able to fill in all the bundles and complete the community center. Now, in case you are a huge fan of Junimos, this is not the farm for Junimos huts to be placed here and utilized. So I strongly suggest against it. If you want to go with Team Joja in order to make the trip for you to get to the desert more convenient, putting down the barns and selling the animal artisanal produce will be extremely beneficial for you. However, let's say you do not want to put animals so close to your home, and you want to go actually with the orchard idea. Now, the logical thing which most people would assume is to actually start planting apricots or cherries. These are your spring fruit trees. This is, however, a big mistake, and you should instead focus on the use or planting oranges or peaches. Peach is one of your most valuable fruit trees, right with the pomegranate for the fall season. Therefore, you will gain a lot of income or a lot of friendship points with the villagers, especially if you go heavy with the oranges. Orange is a truly amazing fruit because lots of NPCs does like the fruit as a treat. So if you give this as a gift, you will be able to befriend them a bit faster. Now, you will need some spacing in between the trees, but other than that, you are going to be able to work with a lot of actual fruit trees here, and therefore making an actual orchard on the beach should become truly a piece of art that you are going to be able to maximize. My personal preference is to always put the trees inside of the greenhouse. This way you have access to the fruit during the entire year and not just at a specific season. And I also do realize that the price for the fruit trees is a bit higher when it comes to the asking price from Pierre, but it should still not limit you when it comes to being able to acquire them. And therefore, if you would to decide to go with the orchids, I would strongly suggest for any player to actually not plant the spring trees, but instead, once you are able to, start planting the summer trees. Reason behind you actually starting with the summer trees is very simple. It takes full season or 28 days for the trees to reach full maturity. This means that if you would start acquiring your apricots or cherries, they will reach their full maturity, but it will happen during the summer season. And guess what? During the summer season, you're not gonna be able to harvest any of the fruit. So you have effectively spent a stupid amount of money at Pierre's shop and you're not gonna be able to get your return. So I advise highly against it and therefore try to focus on the summer fruits, and later on, of course, start planting your apples and your pomegranates. Pomegranates and also peaches are your most valuable fruit trees, so you will be able to work with these fairly easily. Now, of course, I do realize that in the 1.5 version of the game, a brand new crop or fruit tree has been implemented in the shape of mango tree and banana tree, but you will first need to gain access to the Fern Island and unlock the merchant on the island in order to actually be able to gain access to these rare commodities. And also it has some strange asking price for them. Mangoes will cost you 75 mussels, and the banana tree, which will now be actually producing the most valuable fruit tree in the entire game, or the fruit from the fruit tree, sorry, it will actually require 5 dragon teeth. So it's gonna take you a while to gain access to a bigger orchard of those. Therefore, you should focus on planting these types of trees here and focus on them because they will be much easier to be accessed by you, the player. Now, of course, if you want to also produce, for example, kegs or anything else, you will be able to do so, and you are still gonna have some room to actually plant bunch of oaks and bunch of maples and bunch of other stuff. Now, it's actually gonna be interesting to see some of these things in effect, especially all things considered, due to some of the content which is being added when you fulfill certain quests for some of the NPCs now introduced on the island. So I don't want to go too much into the spoilers. The other videos on my channel do cover that more in depth, but like I said, you should definitely focus first on your summer and then your fall crops or fall trees so that they will be able to reach full maturity and you're gonna gain the maximum harvest out of them. The selling price is not the greatest when it comes to these crops. That's the unfortunate fact. However, once they reach full maturity, and especially when you reach like year 2, you're gonna be getting your hands on the fruit right from the day 1, and it's gonna be producing throughout the entire season. So if you don't manage to lose out on a harvest, or when your tree has 3 pieces of fruit on top of it, and you are not gonna miss out on a day of harvest, you will be actually able to get a lot of fruit out of the orchard. And as I said, the lower section, which is close to the grassy land, can be utilized for example, oaks or maples, so that you have access to the oak sap or the resin, the maple syrup, which will be used for the beehives, and also some of the special events in the secret woods, and also theoretically it might be triggered as one of the new bundles, maybe in the community center, who knows. There were some tests done so far, and I have seen all sorts of things being required, from ancient fruit to sweet gem berries to all sorts of other things. So the option 1 is to utilize this B1 section for your massive orchard, and I have not even gone into the spring versions, so apricots or cherries, and we are gonna now take a look at the remaining space here at the B1 section. So you have a plenty of room here left. In case you are actually planning on building something here, what you need to know is that the wet sand, which is highlighted over here, will not allow you to use this land for farming purpose. So in case you are thinking that I'm just gonna grab a bunch of rice shoots, which I'm gonna get out of the mines during year 1 while I'm slaying the monsters living there, you're not gonna be able to plant it in the wet soil and therefore have a massive harvest of rice. You're gonna be only able to plant the rice here, and it usually takes like 2 tiles or 3 tiles maximum away from the water in order for the rice shoots to be still submerged underwater, so you don't have to do watering. And based on my test, it was really difficult and not that reliable source of farming. Also, unmilled rice, which is the final result of you when you harvest the rice, is not that valuable. Sure, you can actually turn the unmilled rice into the rice, but it's much more convenient for you to just buy rice from Pierre, especially later in the game. Now, what can you do therefore with the remaining space here? You have multiple options. You can either go with, for example, a slime hatchery eventually, which takes up a stupid amount of space, and I never built slime hatcheries because usually I don't even get the slime eggs for hatching, and I've never understood the true purpose of this structure. So you don't have to use it, but it will give you plenty of room. What are the other options for you? You can go with fish ponds. Now, of course, with the Fern Island being implemented, you have now some new species of fish. Currently, I was not able to find out if you are gonna be able to put the newly added fish species to the fish ponds, and how much valuable will their roe be, but this is one of the options. Of course, if you don't want to go with the slime hatchery or the fish ponds, you can go and build here some coops. Reason behind this is so that you have at least access to some farming animals, and I'm quite sure that a lot of you saw the initial tweet or the message from Concerned Ape where ducks were seen floating around these trees in the water, so that might be a beautiful sight. Anyhow, because this room over here is not that much of a regular shape, it will be totally up to you on how to utilize it. However, I do suggest that either the majority of the B1 section I do suggest that the majority of the B1 section is utilized either for the use of the orchard or the farm animals. So like this or like this. Of course, this room is then totally free for you to put in whatever you will require, but it is a lot of room, and using these strategies will allow you to be more carefree and not so much hands-on. Animals will only require petting, and before you get your hands on the auto grabber for the eggs or milk, you're still gonna be interacting with your animals when they start to produce you eggs and such in order to get hands on the larger eggs and such. Therefore, the B1 section should be closed down for now, and we can focus on the other part of the map, or the B2 section, so the upper right part of the map. So let's take a look at it. So this is the B2 part of the farm. Now, you will usually see me actually draw the long road down right after or right next to the house. It's actually really working out so far well regarding any of the plans which I am having, especially since I do plan on doing the 1.5 playthrough, and I will probably try to tackle this farm layout and see how much can I get out of it. Same as the B1 section, a lot of strategies can be utilized here for the purposes of you having a productive farm or utilizing this space to its full potential, and I therefore suggest either the use or planting of the orchids and also the planting of the or use of the animals for your main income source. It will really work well, especially if you think about it and if you try. And when you will separate everything into another grid pattern, it will make it that much more easier for you as a player to actually be able to monitor the situation and the harvest. If you decide to separate the trees like this, you will even have surprisingly enough room in between them to put down some beehives or potentially a chest for collecting any valuable items which you might collect, or just in case you don't have yet fully upgraded backpack and you don't want to be running around with that fully occupied with the fruit from your orchard, you can put it into one of these chests and that will store any of the goodies for you. So by doing this, you are going to be able to once again occupy a lot of space which you would normally not be able to utilize, and you are going to be able to have lots of sources of gifts for the villagers, or just be able to turn the fruit into the artisanal items such as wine or jelly. Now, because I do suggest such a heavy use of the fruit trees, I have to specify one more thing about the B1 section. I do not recommend the use of the fruit bats in this farm. It's gonna be much more profitable for you as a player to have constant access to 6 pieces of... Yes, I do realize that the fruit here will always, or the mushrooms will always have only the base quality, but because you are actually gonna be picking up or harvesting so many of the fruit from the fruit trees, the added quality or the potential iridium quality of the oranges or whatever else you might come across inside of the fruit bat cave is not gonna be that much valuable, and trust me, it's gonna be much more optimal for you to use the mushroom. Anyhow, if you fill in once again the farm or the remaining space with whatever you do desire from the fruit trees, you're gonna occupy a massive space, which will be easy to manage, especially even after the winter season, when the rabble might be washed out again here on the beach. So the tall grass or the fiber grass or bunch of rocks or sticks will not be as difficult to manage, since you are going to be able to have a massive orchard here. So do as you wish. However, the use of the orchard is definitely a good idea. Now, I do not like to have a structure with its back facing off next to the house, which is why I actually do not suggest the use of, for example, the coops, despite the fact that you might be able to squeeze a bunch of them over here. So it would be probably some space that you would be losing out on, but as you can see, if you decide to go with the coops, you're still gonna be able to occupy this space quite efficiently, and therefore you're gonna be able to gain access to lots of eggs or anything else. Now, this is the main part which you will most likely use for also farming early in the game. So if you leave this space open up, it's up to you. You can therefore adjust the grid however you wish for, but as I mentioned in the B1 section, you're gonna most likely have to utilize maximum the 2 quality sprinklers layout, because you cannot water more crops at once you reach the iridium quality watering can. Therefore, keep that in mind, and also keep in mind the fact that it will waste a lot of time and lots of energy, which you can then spend either fishing or doing whatever else that you might need to do. And here is the last part of the B2 section. I do realize that this part of the video is a bit shorter, but honestly, due to this awkward place, especially since there is the warp totem, I do not suggest you to use this too heavily for like farming or anything else. What I came across is also the fact that this is the corner or the part of the map where I came across most of the salvage that can be washed out onto the shoreline. One of the newly added features of this map is the fact that you are gonna actually get these crates which are gonna wash up on the shore, and you're gonna be able to gain lots of things from them. I specifically got mostly cherry bombs or mixed seeds, but it's still not gonna be most smart of you to occupy some of this space. If you go and put here, for example, some of the coops, you can totally do so. It will give you a nice little space. You will have your duckies swimming next to the tree, but this is one of the options. What I would, however, suggest is the use of the fish ponds. This place seems like it was specifically meant for a bunch of fish ponds to be placed here, and I cannot guarantee that you are gonna be able to squeeze in all 6 of them, because I'm not really sure how the wet sand will react to you wanting to actually build a structure on top of it. The tool has certain limitations, such as you not being able to draw certain roads across some of the terrain, or not being able to do certain things. And even when I planned out my 4 corners map, I then eventually found out that there were some limitations, so I eventually had to adjust my plans accordingly. So this will actually allow you to have a pretty decent use of the space, and this should still give you plenty of room to gain access to any of the crab pots on the shoreline, have access to water so you can do some fishing, and it's gonna be probably the most efficient use of space. So this is gonna be the B2 section of the map. I strongly suggest you keep either this upper part specifically for farming purposes, especially at the start of the game. Most players, me included, tend to clear out this section of the map earliest in game and start to using for planting their original 15 parsnips, or how many of them you get originally when you wake up in your first day of spring. So do as you wish. However, if you will actually put down the orchards here, it's gonna definitely benefit you greatly, and you're not gonna have that much hassle to deal with. And with that, we can now go and move on to the B3 section of the map. So the B3 part of the map is truly gonna be interesting. First of all, you have 10 times 20 space here, which will perfectly accommodate 8 iridium quality sprinklers for farming. This is the best use of this farming space. I do therefore suggest that if you are gonna be planting any crops here, once you get to the iridium quality sprinklers, you should try to utilize the most valuable crops only. Look, if you wanna plant plenty of potatoes, go nuts, but it's gonna waste the only farmable land here, and unfortunately the fact is that these 8 will work perfectly. We're gonna be able to hold this entire section. You can surround the tiles with the road which you prefer. I do tend to utilize the cobblestone. You can use the gravel path or the wooden path. There's gonna be plenty of trees, but the problem with this section of the map will be that early in the game there's actually going to be a stupid amount of the large logs scattered around, and you're gonna require at least the iron level quality axe in order to clear out this section of the farm, and therefore this is not gonna be your early farming space. You are gonna have to utilize most likely either the top part of the B1 or the B2 corners of the map. But once you get your hands to the skull cavern, the iridium quality sprinklers are definitely gonna be your right choice. The reason behind that is fairly simple. If you try to utilize the quality sprinklers here, unfortunately due to their great work or how they can operate within the given space, you're gonna have to get a lot of them and you're gonna be left with some dead space here. Now normally I would suggest you to put like beehives on the lower part here, so like this, so that you can have, for example, fairy rose honey or anything else. But honestly, since you are gonna have access to this place and you should be able to utilize it for the purposes of having beehives or whatever else you decide to put in here between the trees which are regrowing, some of the bushes and some of the other forageable items which you might come across here, the quality sprinklers are gonna be a bit of a pain to deal with. So just keep that in mind. You're gonna require a lot of them, and because the quality sprinklers also do require the use of a gold bar in order to be constructed, this will not be that easy to also put in as conveniently as you would hope for. So you just have to keep in mind that because of course we are more gonna be focusing on mining, it might be easier for you to get to the deeper levels of the mines, but this will also force you to keep upgrading your pickaxe and other tools, which means that it's gonna take you some time in order to fully occupy this space, and it might be even possible that by the time you would fill in the entire farm here with the quality sprinklers, it's gonna do one thing, or it's gonna do multiple things. First of all, take a look at how many tiles are now being occupied just by the sprinklers themselves. And you also are gonna have to build some additional ones so that this last tile here can be watered, and then these sprinklers are not even that truly utilized. So this is truly a better use for the iridium quality sprinklers. So please keep that in mind. It will be definitely much more beneficial for you to put here the iridium quality sprinklers, and therefore focusing on getting the bus fixed either through JojaMart or either through the community center, and getting to the sculk mines will be your priority, as mining should be on this farm. So 8 iridium quality sprinklers should be always your goal. The beauty of the thing is that you're going to be actually able to put down the pathway on the edge, which will nicely surround the farming tiles, and you're going to be able to put down the scarecrows on the edges here so that they will actually protect your crops from the crows, so that you don't have any unwanted guests. And if you will then decide to go and get the deluxe scarecrow, one will be sufficient enough to cover the entire farm so that you can move these somewhere else. So definitely plan on putting here 8 iridium quality sprinklers. This is gonna be the best use. Once again, I'm not here to criticize you if you decide to do whatever you want. If you want to build just few of these here and surround them with beehives or whatever, do as you wish. I'm just showing you that if you are actually gonna want to use the Junimo hut, it's not gonna work perfectly. It's not that well optimized for Junimo huts, so keep that in mind. It's not the best use of space, and because you are also killing 8 tiles of crops which the sprinklers would themselves water, it's just gonna be much more faster for you once you get a harvest of crops in here prepared to just come in and pick up everything, because once you are interacting with the plants, you are actually pausing the time. So just keep that in mind. For spring season in year 1, I'm not really sure you're gonna be able to utilize this. You might surprise yourself how fast can you descend in the mines, especially if the RNG of the game will keep giving you lucky days, so that whenever you go into the mines, you're going to be able to find the ladders to the lower levels much faster. But yeah, if you are gonna, let's say, be in your year 2 playthrough for spring, I would suggest the use of the rhubarb or cauliflower. For year 2 or summer season in general, definitely go with the starfruit or melons if you truly want to go. But yeah, year 1, if you are gonna be trying to do the community-centered bundles, you might have to plant some crops which will give you access to what you will require in order to fulfill the bundles. The biggest pain in the butt might be the quality bundle, where you will require 5 quality parsnips, 5 quality melons, 5 quality pumpkins, and other crops like this. But that brings us, of course, to the fall season. I would suggest the use of pumpkins, or if you want to go with the beets or yams. Yams are also a good food, because if you made the sweet or the glazed yams as a dish, you will have something which recovers a stupid amount of HP. So if you take lots of damage in the mines, it will actually help you recover fairly easily. So this is my suggestion for the farming tiles here. It's 10 times 20 specifically from this corner. It's 10 down from this corner. It's 20 to the right. So you will be able to utilize this farming space specifically with the use of 8 iridium quality sprinklers the most. Now, here is the lower section of the map. And I have already seen a lot of people do a stupid decision which involves them putting down the barn over here. Can anyone tell me what is the biggest problem with you doing this? I will give you a second. Now, this is once again why I have to state that I'm not here to criticize, I'm here to educate and make you have a more convenient or easy to manage farm. What's the one thing that your animals do when they go outside? They eat the tall grass. The problem is, you're not gonna be able to plant the grass starter here on the grassy plains. This section of your farm is specifically designed to give you the big yield of hardwood, because there's gonna be a lot of tree trunks like these, or actually the bigger ones, the large stumps, are gonna be scattered here. And once you get access to upgraded axe, you should be using it on a daily base to cut down all of these. The benefits of you actually chopping down the large stumps is the fact that you are gonna have access to hardwood, but it's gonna also dramatically help you increase your foraging skill. And this section of the map is gonna be the section of the map which is gonna be spawning foraging items for you. I tried at least 3 save files on this farm in order to test out certain theories, because I cannot use the mods and record them. And every time I was able to come here, I found either daffodils, dandelions, or whatever else it is that spawns during the spring season. I was not able to come across the spring onions here. They are only gonna spawn in the cindersap woods, but because you are so close to the passage down to that section of the map, it's not gonna be that difficult. So definitely do not put your barn or coop over here. It's gonna be idiotic choice. If you want to utilize this section of the map and you don't want to lose out on the large stumps which are going to be supplying you with foraging skill and the hardwood for which you will require 200 pieces just to fix the boat of a Willy eventually, and also there is an upgrade for your house which will require 150 pieces or so. Therefore, do not put coops and barns here. Reason behind this is simple. If you cannot grow the grass starter from the soil, sure, you can put it just here around the water, but that's not enough. Your animals will instead consume hay which is in the feeder inside of either the coop or the barn. This will then make the entire maintenance of the animals that much more difficult, because you're not gonna be able to get access to a large supply of hay early in the game. Sure, during the summer season you can start planting, for example, things like the grains, which then when you harvest you can turn it into either one of the beers or pale ale, and also you get the hay when you harvest this, so that's nice bonus. But before you get to that season, you're gonna be already running around with bunch of coops or bunch of barns, and it's gonna be definitely not the best opinion or the option for you to put down these structures. If you really want to put down any structures, I suggest you to put down the silos here, because you're gonna be working with lots of animals, and if you have bunch of silos here, they're not gonna be in that much of a way. You're not gonna need to have them in the middle of your fenced section of the map for your animals. It's gonna be nice and convenient for you to just come here whenever you need to check on the amount of food that is left, potentially go to see Marnie in the Cindersap woods, purchase how much hay you require, come, put it in here, and then leave. Now, one fun thing which you can also theoretically do here, if it will actually be allowed, and if you want to build or play this farm with your friend, is to build the sheds over here. This would be the most optimal spacing for these cabins. So just keep it in mind that underneath these cliffs, it's a really convenient place to put these. Just be careful, because I already even found some of the salvaged flotsam which was washed out over here underneath this pier. So yeah. Now there are also two piers which you can access. One is through a secret tunnel which can be accessed through here, and if you actually come and start your farm on day 2 when you get the fishing rod, come here and cast your fishing rod over in this direction. The first thing which you are gonna actually pull out is a wrapped up gift, and it's a portrait on a boat which you can hang on the wall. Then you can start fishing for fish. You can, however, utilize this pier, and it's gonna be allowing you to cast into deeper water. Deeper water is important for you, especially when you have bamboo pool or the basic fishing rod at the start of the game. You can even use the training rod if you want to. I personally don't like it. It's not that beneficial, because you are losing on the better quality of fish. And especially when I tried fishing here on like day 2, even with the bamboo rod, I was able to pull out gold star sardines, gold star herrings. The fun thing is, I'm still kind of working on the fishing, because I'm not really sure if this was just a bug when the game was launched, and on the day of the patch I launched the game. Somewhere in these parts of the map where I cast it into the ocean, and I actually pulled out a sunfish. It did not happen since then, but I keep trying. And this is gonna be it for the B3 section. It's your only farming tiles, and it's this forageable area. I would suggest to not go too deep into you putting here too much stuff, because you're gonna kill your hardwood supply, you're gonna kill the chances of the forageable items to spawn in. Don't put your animals here. It's gonna cost you an arm and leg to keep them well fed, especially because the grass starter grows on the sand part. So let's move to the last part, the B4. Now this is the B4 section of your map. Notice the trees and this lovely place which you can get onto and start casting, trying to reach the deeper waters. Now, if we were to look at the original photo from Concerned Ape on his Twitter, this is the section, I believe, where he posted the picture from where some of the ducks were in the water and he was sitting on a bench. Now, of course, you are working with a stupid amount of farmable space, but I actually do suggest the use of this section of the map to either extend the use of your orchard, and trust me, you're gonna be able to put down a stupid amount of orchids. Of course, if you are not that much of a huge fan of just orchids themselves, the money which you can actually make is to theoretically put down lots of maple trees, put in lots of tappers, gain access to stupid amounts of beehives, and be turning the basic honey into mead. This way you're gonna be able to utilize a shed properly, but in case you don't want to bother with too many beehives, because unfortunately the maple syrup is the required ingredient and you cannot skip on that, it's gonna make the whole process that much more inconvenient for you. So kegs, preserve jars, and all these other structures, well, no, preserve jars are actually convenient because all the ingredients can be purchased either from Clint or Robin. I actually made a video about the pluses and minuses when it comes to the use of keg versus preserve jar. You can watch the video on the top corner. I'm gonna leave you a link to that as well. But I would suggest the remaining space on your farm to be used mostly for coops. Reason behind I suggest the use of coops is that before you actually are able to utilize the southern right corner of your map, this place will be just crammed with large stumps all over, and also there's gonna be a massive supply of grass already growing on the sand. This is why I suggest to actually not use some of these sections of the map for farming purposes, but instead to use them for having animals here. Animals will be able to create a massive amount of income over time for you. Sure, it's gonna take time for the animals to reach full maturity, but you have multiple options once again. You can put in a few barns, you can continue to operate your lovely orchard, extending it from the B2 section all the way down here towards the salvage on the island. This cannot be moved, this cannot be hoed, this cannot be removed. It's just gonna be there for decorative purposes. Some of the salvage can be located here. Also, what happened to me is that the sea forageables like the seaweed or clams or whatever actually did spawn on this tiny island over here. So keep that in mind, and therefore try not to occupy too much of the space with pointless junk. Last thing which I would definitely suggest is to build your coops in here. Reason behind this is the more coops you're gonna be able to cram in here, the more chances you're gonna have for that amazing snapshots of ducks floating around these trees. Also keep in mind that the duck feathers have been, thanks to the 1.5 version, now increased in their selling price. Also, the chances of ducks dropping the duck feathers has been increased, and therefore utilizing this for either another orchard or more farm animals is the best use of this space. Just keep in mind, it's gonna take you a while to clear out this section, but if you only clear out the rocks, the wooden planks, or just the branches and the large stumps from the sand, and keep in the tall grass growing, over the time and by the time you are able to fill in either your barns or your coops, it's gonna actually save you a lot of money on grass starter, so you don't have to craft it or you don't have to buy it from Pierre and plant it all over this section. And therefore you're gonna be able to already have food for the animals. They're gonna just run around, ducks are gonna go into the water. You're gonna have a beautiful opportunity for the snapshot or print screen for your Steam community or your Facebook status, or I don't know what you do with Stardew Valley these days. I just try to punish myself and put in another 100 hours because I'm a sucker for punishment and it takes forever for my laptop to render the episodes. But yeah, this is the last remaining sand part. Basically B1, B2, and B4 are all covered mostly in sand. So don't expect to do a whole lot of farming because it's gonna just consume ton of water, ton of energy, and ton of time. And time will be of the essence in case you want to be making money. And instead of actually you watering crops which would normally grow elsewhere fairly easily, you can be taking care of your animals, petting them, milking them, collecting the eggs, turning that into cheese or mayonnaise or whatever else it is that you do, and this way you're gonna still be able to accumulate sufficient amount of money. Is it gonna be easy as on other farms? Absolutely not. Forget it. You're never gonna be able to have such a massive amount of money acquired at the end of, for example, fall season or summer season, because you are extremely limited with how much farming you can do here. And farming is still one of the biggest sources of income. Since you are gonna be mining, however, a lot, it's most likely that certain minerals which you are not gonna be donating eventually to the museum, you can be selling off in bulk, but stuff like quartz or jades or aquamarines or amber or amethyst or whatever else it is that you're gonna be getting your hands on is not gonna be as valuable as a gold star pumpkin, for example. So yeah, also diamonds and other rare gems are not that easy to find. You need to meet for also certain requirements. Now, that would be the use of B1, B2, B3, B4 sections. Now I'm gonna move into some potential layouts or how the farms can look when you play around with them. So this will be the sequence where I will show you like 1 or 2 potential layouts which you can use, and you can of course change it around, but it's just here to make an educated decision, not to criticize you or anything of such manner. Every person will play this game differently. I don't judge. You will have plenty of fun with it. Also, you can utilize this tile over here, which is super inconveniently placed, to just put down all sorts of silos so that all the animals can have access to their food. In case you don't want to put the silos in the B3 section and put them underneath these cliffs, in case you don't want to lose out on forageables. So you're going to be able to supply your animals with plenty of food or store amount of food required to keep well-fed animals, especially during the winter season, because during winter your animals only consume the hay accumulated in these silos. So keep that in mind. This is a nice room for you to put down a bunch of silos, and this should allow you to therefore fully utilize the farm. So let's get to those suggested layouts. This would be one of the farms which I would theoretically suggest. You see the full potential of the use of the lightning rods instead of the fence. Since you have access to the hardwood, you can theoretically use hardwood fence and be able to fix it in case it goes bad. You can move around the greenhouse, however, I would suggest only to do so and potentially like place it over here. One thing which is actually great for this farm is that you can put your stables right next to your house, and this is really awesome in one thing, and that is that the stables still look like an add-on to your house. So once you actually upgrade the house from Robin, the roof from the stables will be nicely connected to your home. You will be able to keep your animals nicely fed in a massive open space. You're gonna have an access to a big orchard which is gonna produce you or supply you with your spring, summer, fall fruits. Then you can put down some of your maple trees or oaks, or you can eventually bring in the mangoes and bananas. But I would probably suggest to keep the mangoes and the bananas on the Fern Island because it's the land of the eternal summer, and I have actually made a video which I have already linked out to. So that's the video on how to make big money on the Fern Island, and that's the true beauty of it. Unfortunately, the tool does not allow you yet to go and theoretically try the Fern Island and try to build out a potential farm. But on the video which I published on my channel, I was able to deduct that you are going to be able to squeeze in at least 22 iridium quality sprinklers. So that is gonna be a massive amount of star fruit or ancient seeds or melons or whatever else you want to grow there. If you're gonna grow there corn and other less valuable crops, I'm gonna probably get a headache, but that's just because I care so much. And the benefit of you having access to the Fern Island farming space will offset the fact that the orchard will only work partially or supply you partially. So this is one of the layouts which I do suggest. As you can see, I do suggest that the coops are here so that the duckies can float around near the trees. You can have those beautiful snapshots. The tall grass will be growing here, and you're going to be able to gain access to lots of animals. Also, the benefit of you having access to as many barns is that the ostriches, which you can eventually start to have on your farm, which are really difficult to get, because first you need to free up the professor, then you need to fulfill the collection in his tent, then he gives you the incubator and the ostrich egg. You need to put the incubator into a barn because ostrich is a large animal, so it will not reside in coop as I originally thought it would. And this means that when you put the ostrich egg into the incubator, it's gonna take around like 12 days for it to hatch, and then it's gonna take an entire season of 28 days for the ostrich to reach full maturity, after which the ostrich will be, of course, somehow laying down eggs. So before you actually think that you're gonna have a barn full of ostriches, if you are planning on doing that, then you're gonna have to take at least until year 3 or 4 to do so. Trust me, it's gonna take a while. Now, one big thing about the farm in general, which I did not go into too much detail, and I'm gonna go into after I show you the other potential layout. As you can see, it's fairly similar to the original. The only change is that I left this thing alone. I have actually placed a shed over here, or the slime hatchery. Some of the silos can be moved around. In case you want to play this with a friend, definitely I suggest you to try and build the lodges underneath these, or the cabins underneath these cliffs. It's gonna be much more convenient, and this way you can manage the upper part, the friend can manage the lower part, or you can be switching around, but it's gonna be super easy then. So as you can see, I do suggest the use of the orchids, or if you truly insist on having a farm in the sand, you can utilize a system such as this. Use the first part, or the B2 section, for farming. Have there some fish ponds. The B1 section can be used as your orchard, and you can utilize the B4 section for having some animals scattered all over. It's gonna definitely usually be for me to use the lower section for the animals, or the one section for the animals, but I just placed here all these sprinklers to show you the layout which you should rely on, because the watering can of radium quality can water these tiles and nothing more. And also it's gonna take you a while to water all of this, so just keep that in mind. This is the second suggested layout. It truly depends on you and how you want to play this. If you are new to the game and you want to challenge yourself with this map, you can use one of the layouts which I have suggested. It's not gonna be that difficult for you to be trying to building towards this. You can change up the farm a bit, of course, it's totally up to you. But if you are going to be utilizing the sand part of the map, try to use the fruit trees. The reason behind the fruit trees is you don't need to water them, they just grow and they provide you with the crops. the sandy part can grow the grass starter, so the farm animals will be able to feed themselves, and use the hoeable land or the watering land for the iridium quality sprinklers. Use this section for your coops so that you can have the duckies swim around and you can do whatever else you want on the farm. Dynamos are not gonna work here. If you are just planning on going minimalistic on the farm, that is also the option for you. And that is gonna sum up the overall idea for what you can expect of this farm. Now at the end, I'm gonna address one thing. That is the massive shoreline which is accessible to you. I believe that this farm has been created in order to compete with the fishing farm layout. However, the fishing farm layout will supply you with freshwater species of fish or the species that can be caught in the crab pots. However, as you can see, the land here can be used for farming and can utilize the sprinklers. So if you want to punish yourself and you're not really sure if the beach farm is truly for you, try to go with the riverland farm. It's gonna be more difficult for you, of course, but if you like a challenge, go ahead. So, the last part which I wanted to talk about, the shoreline. You can use the shoreline for crab pods. Reason why crab pods will be interesting for you is that you will require 75 mussels in order to gain access to a mango sapling from the island trader. Mussels have become more rare in the crab pods than even a lobster, or they almost work on a similar spawn rate. Mostly what you're gonna be pulling out is either trash, shrimp, crab, cackle, and clams. These are gonna be mostly the things which you are gonna find. Of course, the cool thing is that if you go with level 10 fishing skill, you can either change the fact that the crab pots will no longer be producing junk, so no soggy newspaper or no driftwood or whatever else it is that you can come across, broken CDs and such. You're just gonna be catching shrimp, crabs, cackles, mussels, clams, and lobsters. The problem is, Dangerously Funny did a video ages ago on the Riverland farm specifically, where without the use of mods, he was actually going around trying to farm and plant down the crab pots all over the shorelines. It took him forever to get done, and the profit margin was not even that great. The fish from the crab pots are not that valuable, so I would probably suggest that the player still goes with like the angler skill tree so that the fish have higher value, so that once you sell them, you're gonna be able to keep buying bait from Willy and additional crab pots. And that is gonna be it for this video. I have talked your ears on for hours. If anyone is still watching until this point because you just want to see how much you can push this farm to the limit, thank you for your patience with me. I try to make this as short as possible. This is honestly my fourth rewrite of the entire farm. And the planning. The first section was like, I don't know, 4 hours long, and it was just so chock full of information which I have gathered from the years of playing this game, that some of it was still valuable, some of it was no longer even valid. I'm just trying to give you some steps on how to improve your gameplay or how to try to maximize this farm. I'm planning on doing this for a series for each of the layouts. Of course, there might be some differences due to limitations such as me not being able to draw the roads here on the grasslands, but that's just the limitation of the tool. As I said, I'm not the proprietor of the tool, I do not own it, I am just promoting it because it can help you tremendously to improve your gameplay, so go nuts. And I'm gonna wish you a pleasant rest of the day. Check out the channel for more fun content. I publish videos on a weekly basis. I do mostly playthroughs, I do tips and tricks, I do early in-game reviews, I do discussion videos. I'm planning on doing a whole lot more stuff eventually when I will be able to build a computer, but for that some miracle is gonna have to happen, as it's kind of difficult to get my hands on certain components currently. So stick around, I will leave the links in the description so you can check out these layouts. You can check out the tool on your own. You don't require any specific downloads or enable any sort of stuff in order for it to work. It's a great tool, it will help you greatly to improve your gameplay, especially if you are planning to use or plan on playing on any of the more difficult farm layouts. It will give you an idea of what you should work towards, and I am just gonna be thankful for you that you might theoretically like the video. Give it a like or leave a comment section or comment in the comment section in case you have any questions, concerns, or if you are not sure why I have decided to suggest the things I have suggested. If you came across certain issues or so, please let me know in the comment section. I'm gonna be also happy. I had to do this video before I do a playthrough for 1.5 version, in case I will actually do so, because I needed a plan towards which I would be building my farm. I like to have a plan, I like to work in some sort of a grid pattern, so you can understand why I did what I did, and this should help you to get a more understanding of the logic behind the crazy mind that is me. I'm gonna wish you a pleasant rest of the day. Thank you for watching, enjoy the holidays, stay safe everyone, and see you in the comments or at the next one. Bye bye.